Okay. Hey, good evening, everyone. We should be live now. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our fairly weekly, we didn't have one last week because of the holiday, but our weekly Monday live forums. Let me introduce who we have tonight. We're doing it a little bit differently. We are doing it by, we are streaming from Zoom. So I do have two guests with us tonight. The first one I want to introduce is June Doomers. June is our new assistant principal, and she's been handling a lot of the work with hotspots and helping parents navigate K-12 and those type of things. And then we also have Sam Caffey, who is our department chair for our counseling department. And Sam has been working a lot with the other counselors on making sure kids are in the right classes and helping them log on and making sure they know their username and passwords. Hopefully by having June and Sam here tonight, we can answer your questions. I'm assuming there's gonna be a lot of questions regarding specifically with the K-12 platform and navigation of it and where things are, or logging in and whether you see classes or maybe you don't see classes. We're going to try to answer all your questions tonight regarding that. So to start though, I just want to give you kind of a little information on where we're at. We currently have around 1,535 students registered. Our daily attendance is right around 91%, which means that 91% of those 1,500 are logging into K-12, or they have contacted their teacher by email. They have had some kind of contact with their teachers on a daily basis. We do have, we're still working on a couple of issues with some classes. We'll talk more specifically about which classes those are, and you all may have questions about that as we go forward. Second thing is with hotspots. So we've currently issued about 75 hotspots to families at the high school that are having that were having issues with connectivity. They seem to be working fairly well. Parents and families have reported to us that they're able to set up the hotspot, they're able to get on the internet, and they seem to be working fairly well. As of today, we only have 8 families on our list that have not received hotspots yet. 3 of those we have confirmed need a hotspot because of connectivity issues. And the other 5 we're still trying to contact to find out if it is actually a situation that a hotspot would help. Hotspots don't solve all the problems, but if you have fairly decent cell service, a hotspot can be a real help to connectivity in the house. So like I said, right now we currently have about 8 families that we're still trying to work with to see if we can get them hotspots and if hotspots will help. One of the other issues that one of the other situations that has come up recently is the idea of having a regular set schedule for our students. And I know that at the lower levels, at the elementary level, especially K through 4, they're having their students log on every morning from, I think it's 4 hours in the morning, and their teachers have direct contact with the students. And there certainly is a need for that. At the high school level, I think it becomes a little bit more flexible for our students. And one thing we are finding out is that we have quite a few families that have multiple children in the house. They have young children, and the younger children need to be on at a certain time in the morning. So The older students are usually doing their work in the afternoon or evenings, weekends, those type of things. And so we're trying to be as flexible as we can. We would love to have students log in during their scheduled periods on the bell schedule. But as we've always said from the very beginning, we're certainly going to be flexible and allow students to tailor this to what meets their needs and what fits their needs the most and best. We are, however, going to meet with our department chairs on Wednesday, and there is a pacing guide and a calendar on the K-12 platform, and we're going to look at creating some uniformity, I guess, or some consistency across the campus and across our teachers, so that when students look at their calendar, it looks similar in each class, and they can look at their calendar and see, what do I have today? What do I have tomorrow? And what do I have kind of down the road that I need to be ready for? So while we want to allow as much flexibility as possible, we are also trying to create some consistency, because I know that can be kind of hectic when you're maybe not clear what you're supposed to be doing the next few days or whatever. So as we go through this week, we'll be working with our department chairs and eventually with our entire staff on how to create that consistent schedule, and so that when the student looks at their calendar, they see the same thing for each class, and they see exactly what's expected of them and when it's expected. So if you've got questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, in the chat section over there. We certainly will answer all of your questions tonight. Right now, I want to turn it over to Ms. Doomers, and if you have anything, Ms. Doomers, you'd like to add regarding the questions you've been having with K-12, or the things that you've been working with students and families on and teachers, you can share it with the families now.
I think the one thing is the hotspots. Definitely, if there's a need for a hotspot, to call the office and let us know. You can have them patch you through to me, or email me, and I will make sure that you get on the list. One of the things that we're trying to differentiate between are who has access to the internet but just having issues with it, versus who does not have any access to the internet and needs a hotspot. And if anything is going wrong, or if the hotspot's not working, or your student is not able to access the course for any reason, make sure you let us know right away, so that we can try to help and figure out what the issue is. We have given out a lot of hotspots, and as Bruce said, it doesn't mean that everyone that gets a hotspot is going to be able to connect flawlessly, although there have been very few problems. If you don't have connectivity, I mean, if you don't have a signal wherever you are, it has happened that, on occasion there may not be able to be a signal that goes to the hotspot, and then we have to figure out something else for you. So we are 100% committed to making sure that every student gets connected to K-12 and is able to access the online program.
Thank you, Jim. Sam, from your perspective in the guidance department, or in the counseling department, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of issues when it comes to just setting up an account and getting started. And I think the majority of those have gone away. We had to change some curriculum codes because we want to align what we're teaching with exactly what the K-12 platform offers. So some of the issues that did come up were a switch when we did English courses and math courses in particular. Our departments took a look at what's being offered and said, oh, actually, this code might better suit our needs and be able to, have some consistency, especially if we're trying to be as flexible as possible for next trimester. If we're in a hybrid model or not, we want to make it a seamless transition between the two systems. So your student may have experienced some disappearing classes, and that was because we had to do a mass overhaul of changing all of that. And so we appreciate your patience, and I salute Mr. Kipper for his support in allowing us to go slow before we can go fast at the beginning of the school year. It's been a lot of learning experience for all of us to figure out how to make these two systems work as best as possible. So that's been a big change. Also from the guidance department, we are reviewing all 504s. So if one of your student has a 504, they will be getting contact by one of us in the counseling department to to either notify you how those accommodations are going to be made and completed through K-12, whether or not they're a seamless, flawless transition, whether or not they're not applicable because they're environmental based and those are things that are going to be taken care of at home, or whether or not they're a partial. So you'll hear more if that applies to you.
So Sam, a couple of the first, there are more comments than questions, and I certainly understand the frustration level with some of our families right now and our students and parents with not being able to connect and log into all their classes. Some classes, like you said, disappeared overnight one night, and we had to get those loaded back in. So,
yeah,
like, what advice do you have for a student that, let's say, couldn't log into their classes until just like a day, like yesterday or today, even for the first time?
Yeah. Luckily, a lot of our staff members, all of our teachers should be posting lessons from every single day that they've gone online and there was instruction. So there's visible evidence so that there isn't this inequity of a live experience that our students aren't able to get caught up on. And so if your student just got access now, there is a treasure trove, as we say, of material and content that they can go back and see so that they're as caught up as everyone else is. And for the most part, in our academic courses, there isn't a lot of progress that has gone so far. So they're not at a disadvantage at all. And that's the same thing I've been telling families who are newly enrolled with us, who are still getting enrolled currently. We've got lots of families that are coming into our district and getting started too. So if that's your situation, you're not far behind anyone else.
So what if a student can't see all their classes right now? What should they do?
Yeah. So if you can't see all your classes, it could mean that some of them are on Google Classroom. I know there's some confusion between the two, that it would be nice if everything was visible on K-12. It would be nice to have a one-stop shop for everything. But the way our system works, in order to create that seamless transition back, some of our classes are truly Google Classroom only. And so the first place to look is Skyward. If you've got your Skyward login, then you can go in and look at the class schedule, and it will indicate whether or not the course is a Google Classroom course or a K-12 course. You should have also got a Google invite from your teacher so that you can participate in that class, if that's your case. If you don't have a Skyward login, contact one of us in the counseling department. We can look that up real quick and easy and get you access. And then on top of that, we can review which classes are Google Classroom, which ones are K-12. It's kind of like a treasure hunt a little bit, where you got to mark off or narrow down all of the options to make sure we know exactly what the problem is. And so if your courses aren't on Google Classroom and they're supposed to be on K-12 and they're not, then we have access to see what's the holdup. Today, we had 14 freshman students who were still pending a course. And so we had to reach out directly to K-12's tech department. And then within 2 hours, all of their courses were now available for access. And so that's still happening for some of our students. We're noticing that the 24-hour K-12 update isn't always activating our students' class. So we need to reach out directly to them. So the first place to go to is talk to your school counselor.
Okay. Another question we had was, what happens if your child is done, excuse me, what happens if your child is done with the classwork before technically the class ends? As long as there's not live instruction going on that would be pertinent to their learning, they can walk away from the class at that point. So some days there will be just work to do that's posted, assignments or papers or whatever it might be. And if it takes 20 minutes to complete it, or it takes 40 minutes to complete it, and they're done, but technically the class isn't over, yes, they can log out, walk away, come back for their next class at that scheduled time. They don't have to stay logged in the entire class period. So there's another question about what happens if a parent can't get into the parent portal, into their parent portal. Is that something they contact K-12 about, or is that something we can help them with?
Yeah, we actually have access to the email on file for all parent portals. So that's the first place to start, is to reach out to us, and we can figure out what email that may be, and then kind of go through the treasure hunt again of figuring out, okay, forgot your username. Now we have your username. Now we can try to figure out what your password was. And so we can get access. It's really important that parents have, guardians have access to their portal so that they can then help monitor their students' progress, as well as if their student ever forgot their access, which was happening a lot, or students were going in through their parent portal, they can actually go in from that access and see and reset any information that's necessary for their student.
Okay. There's a question about National Honor Society, and no, we are not canceling National Honor Society. I've worked with Senior Lewis, and we've been meeting about it. Right now we're trying to find out what can we do online that meets the requirements for National Honor Society until we can bring students onto campus in small groups. I anticipate that it will be sooner rather than later that we can bring small groups of students onto campus, doing it following the protocols and that make sure that we're within the guidelines. But we have not forgot about National Honor Society or any of our other clubs or activities. I understand, and I just understand how important it is to students, and especially in this time with their connectivity to their friends and their colleagues and their classmates. So don't worry about us canceling any of those type of activities. I would want to do it right now if we could. So you should be getting, especially with National Honor Society and how important that is to college applications and those type of things, you should be getting information fairly soon on that. So when I look at the questions, and I don't know if this is June or if this is for you or for Sam, we have some parents contacting us saying that they're seeing two classes that are like on at the same time.
Yes.
So what does that mean? Like, how is that happening, I guess?
June, I'm happy to take this.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the first place to check is it may be something on our end. We might have assigned a course to the wrong section. That's few and far between in our case of going in and looking at the situation. It actually became apparent to us on our first day of full instruction was that it was a modification that staff members, that teachers of the course needed to go in and adjust their course so that it was going on at the correct time that it's supposed to be. So on Skyward, it may say first, second, third, fourth period, but teachers on K-12 hadn't gone in and made those adjustments to reflect the same time. So if that is the situation, please notify one of us. June's been really helpful in that process of notifying teachers of the instructions of what they need to do to be able to adjust our end. It's not something or an issue on your student's end. It's definitely something we need to take care of. And so please notify us if that is happening. And
on occasion there has been an accidental mix up between AM and PM. And so, if it says your student should be on at like 8:15 PM, that's likely a mistake. So I would just contact the teacher and point it out, and they can get that fixed.
So explain a little bit. Can you explain a little bit about the Google classes and how they're set up and they're different? And like Sam, you said earlier that the student should have got a Google invite. So can you explain those a little bit to parents?
Yeah, definitely. So every student is enrolled, who's enrolled has access to their a specific Skyward or a specific Shelton High School Google account. And so that's where we encourage them to put on their Google Docs, their Google Sheets, all the information that they put together for school should be housed in that account. And in that, one of the great things that Google has is what's called Google Classroom. So it allows for teachers to create an environment, whether or not it's for advisory purposes, for informational purposes. Miss Worsbicky, our 9th grade school counselor, has her own Google Classroom that's dedicated to just sending out and reaching out to students and families who are in the 9th grade. So if you have more information about that, definitely reach out to her. But it requires an invitation. It's so that it protects the safety of our students, that random people aren't just coming in and getting access and being able to communicate and talk with them. So a teacher who is the owner of that classroom has to send out an invitation to every member. And in that, it's very similar to the K-12 platform, where you'll see posts from your staff, from your teachers, of what information is necessary, what assignments are being asked. And there's a lot of connectivity and some really great things that Google has done to make it feel like it's a one-stop shop for everything a typical classroom would have.
Do parents have, like on K-12, parents have their own account. Do parents have access to the Google Classroom at all, like to see their students' progress or anything?
June, do you want to take that?
You know, I think when I was teaching out of Google Classroom, I think that was a proposed next update. So I'm not 100% sure if they made that update where parents could now have access to it. I know they had talked about doing that, but I can check on that and have it for the next time.
Okay,
yeah, my understanding is that there isn't any way a parent or a guardian has access without getting a specific invitation. And we send out those invitations based on student rosters put up by our Skyward system. We are sending those forwarded information now. So it'd be best if you would expect of your student to go in with your student to say, hey, show me what your Google Classroom looks like. We give a lot of access to guardians through Skyward and through K-12, but Google is one that kind of, right? It'd be great if they would update that.
But parents should always,
I don't think they have that yet.
Okay, parents should always check Skyward though for the most accurate grades and stuff, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
please.
Okay. So whether it's K-12 platform, whether it's Google Classroom, please, if you want to see a grade update and get the most accurate grades, check your Skyward account, because that's where teachers are migrating the grades to. I know that, and I'll just address this now, as there's been several comments. I understand people are frustrated, and believe me, we here at school are just as frustrated that we've had classes dropped off, that we've had students have issues connecting and logging into their classes. And so I know, and we all know that it's not perfect. But we all have to hang in there. It's getting better. I'm telling you right now that we are not going to punish kids if they couldn't log in to their classes, and we're going to give them the opportunity to make up work and to get caught up. And I've said from the beginning that we're going to go slow to go fast. And even today, as of today, we still are not fully 100% go in every classroom, and we're chugging down the railroad track. It's still in the process where we are having some students having issues that we're addressing. So I understand your frustration, and you have every right to be frustrated. I would be frustrated if I was a parent too. And I'm frustrated as the principal, but it's getting better, and we're committed to making this work. So you just gotta, I don't know what else to say other than you just gotta hang with us. You just gotta plug every day, tell your son or daughter that it's okay. They're not going to get left behind. They're going to be given every opportunity to get caught up. We're not going to punish kids because this wasn't perfect in the beginning. So I understand, but we just got to keep moving forward. Okay. There's another question about attendance. So this, and I'll kind of address what the state has said. And I've kind of put June in charge of this here at school, working with our staff on how we're taking attendance. So right now, the state has given the districts until October 5th to come up with policy on how they're going to take attendance. The state has created, for now, they've created a code that basically is, in layman's term, online absence, basically an online learning absence. It's neither excused nor unexcused. As of right now, we are, the way we're taking attendance is we're having our advisory teachers be responsible for monitoring the attendance of their advisory students. Each advisory teacher has between 20 to 25 students in their advisory. So every day that teacher is checking those 25 students to see if they've logged in. And just logged into any class, done any work, anything. Right now we want students just to be able to log on and get into their classes. Students actually have until midnight each day to log in before being counted absent. So while we have a bell schedule that says school starts at 7:50 and ends at 2:20, students do not have to log in during those times to be counted present. They have to log in before midnight. So they have all day and all night to log in. So our teachers normally leave school around 3:15, 3:30, someplace in there. So before they leave, they check on their 23 approximate students to see if they logged in that day. If they didn't log in, they mark them absent. The next day when they come back, first thing in the morning, the ones they marked absent, they're checking to see, did they log in after 3 p.m. the day before? And those that they see logged in at night or late afternoon, they go back and they notify the attendance clerk to change the absence to non-absent. Then that leaves us with a few kids that are still marked absent. And then one more email is sent out to all the staff saying, here's the list of students that are still marked absent. Did you have any contact with any of these students yesterday? Did they email you? Did they log in that we didn't see? Did they contact you in some way that we can count them present? And then the teachers reply, and then the final list is submitted of absences. So if your son or daughter is marked absent to one of these days or before October 5th, you do not have to worry about excusing it. There's no excused or unexcused absences. They're just categorized as that online learning absence. So they're not going to hurt your son or daughter in any way. Okay. June, do you want to take this and kind of expand on where this might be going with attendance or things you're seeing with it?
Yeah, the one thing I do want to point out though is even though it's not going to count against them for the attendance process, meaning that, we're not going to call truancy boards and stuff like that if your student is absent. However, it will affect their grade if they don't keep up with classes. So even though we're not counting it like, this is an unexcused or an excused absence, we still expect your student to be online and to be participating in their instruction. And that's really important. And if they're not, then, we want to make sure that we find out what the problem is. So communication is really key in online learning because we don't know what's going on outside of what we can see online. And if we don't see any activity at all, then we don't know if that's because, is the student ill or have they lost contact or interest with school? Those are two very different issues that are dealt with in two very different ways. So we want to make sure that, we engage students and that they're participating and learning. And that is the number one thing. We want them to learn. And learning is an active verb. They have to actually put forth the effort to do that. If they're not online and if they're not on K-12 or in Google Classroom or connecting with their teachers, then they're probably not learning. So please, if there's any problems at all, make sure that you contact the school as soon as you can, because the sooner you do, the faster we can get on it and make sure that we help your student.
Yeah, I guess I should probably rephrase that. When I said it's not going to hurt your child anyway, as far as being dropped from a class or something like that is not going to, but absolutely the name of the game is keeping up with the work in the class. That's obviously, and the more students are not logging in, the harder time they're going to have doing that. So I'll say it again. I mean, we want students to log in during their scheduled class time every day and completing the work that's assigned, whether it's a live session or whether it's, asynchronous learning with an assignment that's online or whatever it might be. But we understand that not every student's going to be able to do that, but that's certainly our goal. Regular attendance in any research you look at, regular attendance is the number one factor in how well kids do in school. The next, so, and I'll just say this too, we've had a couple of comments about if you've emailed somebody, if you've emailed a counselor or any other staff member, a teacher, advisor, or somebody that you're not getting a response from, please forward the email to me. And, you know, I've made it pretty clear to the staff that communicating with our families, especially in this time, is our number one priority. And yes, sometimes that means taking a phone call from an angry, frustrated parent, but that's the way it is. We have to communicate. So if you're not receiving a response, I can guarantee you they're not ignoring you, because I've made that perfectly clear. But you can imagine the volume of emails that our counselors get, that the administrators get, and it could have just got by somebody. But email me, and Sam can attest to this. I forwarded him, I walked down, I asked him, I need you to contact this parent right away.
Yep.
I need you to take care of this one right now. So if it gets to me, you will hear back. And you'll hear back fairly quickly. But I'm confident that our staff is doing a good job in communicating. It's just some of them may slip by with the volume of emails that we have. But so Ashley E, send me an email and I'll make sure somebody gets back to you. Let's see what else we got here. So one parent says, I have a freshman and she's scheduled in 2 different math classes. Will one of them fall off her schedule? So Sam, is there a possibility that somebody could have a mistake like that still?
Yeah, it is. We're still in the process. If it's a course and they have 2 math classes, one of them shouldn't allow you to have access to, meaning that it's an old course, an old curriculum code that we got rid of, and we're still in the process of cleaning those up and taking those away. One, because we want to have everything as tidy as possible, and we were in such a rush to try to get all courses added before we had the time to delete them all. And 2, K-12 is going to charge us for those courses. And so there's some added incentive on our end to make sure that everything's clean and clear, so that, you know, there's a cost to working with another system like that. So we'll take care of it.
And then also there's a question about a student received the Google Classroom invite and it sent them to an Outlook pop-up. So are there separate credentials for students for Outlook, or is that a mistake, or what happened to that, you think?
That's a great question, actually. Because our Skyward and Google accounts are connected, they do use 2 separate systems. A teacher is using Outlook versus students are using Google. So the best possible solution around that is that in the Google Classroom invite, it should have sent a very specific code, and that can just be copy pasted right into a Google Classroom. So if you were to click onto that Google Classroom tab, and it says in the top right corner, I think it says, do you have an invite code? Then you would just put in whatever that was based on the email that you got. And if that's not working, or it doesn't have that specific code, contact one of us counselors and we can hunt it down for you.
We have a couple of staff members that are on with us tonight on the chat, and a couple of them I think are teaching Google Classroom classes, and they say that parents can be added with an invite to the parents. So
that is great news.
Tiffany and Helena, thank you for that information. They don't see everything exactly like the student would see it, but they do receive a report that's emailed to them. So that's good news. Another one is, my son only has 3 classes. Are they not being assigned electives if they only have 3 credits to graduate? So how are we handling seniors that don't need a full load of classes to graduate?
Yeah, so the district policy is that when a student is enrolled, they are fully enrolled, which means that they have 5 classes each trimester plus an advisory. There are some exceptions, and And one of the biggest ones that Mr. Kipper was explaining was our work experience, where that provides up to 2 periods, depending on the amount of hours that your student is working, that could get it so that they're only focused on maybe those core classes or those courses that are directly related to their high school and beyond plan. One of the purposes as to why we moved to trimesters was to expand our students' opportunity to try new things, to experience what, once they're done with our high school, would cost them money to go and learn. And so we encourage all our seniors to explore and take things that they never would typically take, in hopes that they find a new passion or something that really intrigues them, or a new career path. But if your student only has those set requirements, there are some exceptions that can be worked out individually to see what's going on. It may be that your student has 3 classes and that the other 2 are on Google Classroom and they might not know, or that there's a scheduling error. So I know that we are very particular about ensuring that all students have first trimester fully enrolled. But beyond that, because we're being flexible to the changing of systems, it may be that their second and third trimester courses aren't fully added yet, and those will happen soon.
So if a student is enrolled in 1 or 2 of the work study periods, how does that show up on Skyward, or where does that show up at?
Yeah, that will show up on Skyward as work experience.
But it won't show up on K-12.
No, any course that's Google Classroom, and that's work experience as a Google Classroom based course, won't show up on on K-12.
Should they have gotten an invite from the Google Classroom teacher for the work program?
Yes. Yeah. Ms. Shrum has taken care of all the contact that I'm aware of.
Okay, so I would say that if your child doesn't have 5 classes between K-12 and Google Classroom, so first look on Skyward and see what their schedule says on Skyward. If they have 5 classes on Skyward, then you should see that combination of 5 classes between K-12 and Google Classroom. If you don't, contact your counselor, your son or daughter's counselor, as soon as possible. There's then another question about when school resumes on campus. Will there be a chance to keep children remote if you as a parent don't feel comfortable sending them back? Maybe it's too soon to ask. And it's never too soon to ask that question, because this situation is so fluid. Things change in a moment's notice. Now, I don't think we're coming back anytime in the next, month or 2 months even, in any way, with kids on campus in classrooms. We could be bringing students onto campus in small groups to get academic assistance, to have club meetings, or to do some type of activities like that. But when we come back in the hybrid model, parents will have the opportunity, if they feel like their son or daughter, they don't want their son or daughter to come back at all at that point in time, they will have the option. Now, some parents, so if you remember back to the beginning of, it was probably in the middle of August, our district sent out a survey to parents asking this very question about, do you want your child to be enrolled online for the whole year, regardless of what we do? Whether we come back or not, you want your child online no matter what. Some parents said yes. So their son or daughter is enrolled in the Shelton Virtual Academy, which is the same K-12 platform, but it's a separate, it's a separate school in of itself, basically. So in the event that we return to school in some form in the next trimester or second trimester, that student would stay online no matter what. Now, it doesn't mean that if you didn't say yes back then, you can't say yes when the time comes. If the time does come and you do not want your child to return, we will work with you and we will transition your son or daughter to the virtual academy, and they can continue to do their classes online. So we'll work with you on that one. It's not, we're not going to force anybody to come back if you don't want them to. But like I said, we have some time on that one, and we'll see how it goes with the virus and how the county is reacting, and what the health department says. We kind of covered attendance, but there's another one about the K-12 platform isn't holding attendance. Do we ignore this part? Yes. All you have to focus on is we want your son or daughter to log into the platform and complete their work for the day. As I said earlier, we're working with the department chairs to come up with a consistent practice for the calendars and the agendas and the pacing guide. And I'm confident by early next week, we'll have something in place where all teachers are doing similar practices so it looks the same for every teacher. But right now, you don't need to worry about doing anything with attendance other than making sure your son or daughter logs on and logs into all their classes every day. So there's another question about, wouldn't it be better if the kids went by the bell schedule since some teachers go live? Yes, absolutely. Like I said, we want every student to log in at the assigned times on the bell schedule. That would be optimal. That would be the best thing that could happen for the student, the teacher, everybody involved. Some teachers are going live more than others. And it depends on the kind of the curriculum and what the course is. But certainly that's our goal. But we are going to be flexible with students that can't do that. I mean, I spoke to a family the other day. One of the parents is an employee of the district that's working from home. They have one in elementary school. They have one or two in the middle grades, and then they have one or two in high school. And it's just, there's no way that everybody can be on at the same time. And the younger ones have to be on. And so the older ones usually have to get on in the afternoon, or remember, anything that's live, a live lesson is recorded, that students can go back and watch it at a later time if they want to. Even if they watched it, even if they were there live, they can go back later and watch it again to make sure they got everything. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of it. But yes, we want everybody to log in at the assigned times. That would be the optimal thing to do. And then there's another thing that's, and I think June, you maybe will have, so in the K-12 platform, some of the work or some of the assignments are marked optional. What does that mean?
Yeah, and I think that what they're probably talking about with the optional is on some of the Class Connect sessions, the teachers have the option to either make them required or optional. Some teachers make them optional because they're like drop-in sessions. If you have a question, they'll be online, they'll be live on Class Connect. The student can come in and ask their question or get help with it, or even just say hello if they need that contact with somebody. That's what they tend to put them as optional. But if they're actually doing instruction, that's when they put required. And of course, required, if they can be there live, great. If they can't be there for whatever reason, they should be recording them and then putting them into the class content so that students can access them later.
I know one thing that some of the teachers are doing that it's a little confusing, but I understand what they're trying to do. And I think once everybody understands it, I think that it makes sense. So like a teacher might teach, they teach English all day. They teach 4 English classes. And so they're opening a Connect session for the entire day from 7:50 to 2:20. All that is stating is that they're available for anybody to drop in at any time. So you might have your English first period, but if you're doing the work later in the day and you have a question and it's like 1 o'clock, you can drop into that teacher's class. Even from first period, you can drop in the afternoon and ask the teacher questions. So some teachers are just creating an open Connect session for the entire day for any of their students to drop in regardless of what period they have. So if you see a Connect session that says like 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock or 8 o'clock to 2:30, that's what that means, is that the teacher's available, and it will say optional by it. That just means the teacher's available to drop in at any time during the day if you have questions. There's some comments about contacting K-12. I would strongly advise you contact us. K-12 is a large company. And like, I think like any company, nobody has really enough tech support. And so if you contact K-12 with your specific issues, you may not get a response in a what do you want to say, in an optimal amount of time. You know, if you contact us, we have a contact that works directly with us at K-12, and she's been extremely helpful, and she's gotten us answers really quickly. So if you're having issues, any type of issues with K-12, contact us first. I can tell you that the guidance, I keep calling them guidance counselors. Where I come from, that's what we call them. I'm sorry. The school counselors have all been working really hard to know the K-12 platform. They can answer a lot of your questions about logging on. What do you see? What don't you see? Why you may not see it or why you do see it. I know that June has spent a lot of time also, and that's why I have her and Sam here, is they've spent a lot of time with working with K-12 and talking to people about K-12 and how it works. So again, if you're having any issues, contact us before contacting K-12. And then there's a question about what's the expectation for return communication. I think it's reasonable to expect something within 24 hours. If you email a teacher and they don't get back to you within 24 hours, you can always forward it to me and I will make sure somebody gets back to you. But I think 24 hours is a reasonable expectation. And again, if there's questions about specific work or assignments, if you haven't gotten a response, please let me know. And that was weird. I just lost the chat room for a second there. And I just lost, that's weird. Okay. There we go. So again, I will reconfirm with the staff what my expectations are, but if you're not getting a response, please let me know. Let's see, another question we have. Let's see. The question is, so specifically regarding whether parents need to mark the attendance that's in the K-12 parent portal. No, you do not have to. The parents do not need to do anything with attendance. We're handling at this end. And if your son is attended every day or your daughter is attended every day, then we will take care of that here. If you think that your child has been marked absent when they shouldn't have been, you can send an email to your teacher, and if you would copy me on it also, I will follow up with Leslie in the front office, our attendance clerk. Okay, so Tiffany, thank you for this information. So Tiffany, one of our English teachers, says if emails are being sent to teachers with the K-12 email address, teachers cannot respond if the student used a personal email. Please make sure the email is sent from their K-12 email. So that's good information to know. It just may not be getting to the teacher.
Bruce, so there was some history around sending emails from students' personal emails versus Skyward. Previously, before the COVID situation, students were able to receive emails but never send any. So there has been some confusion around how to communicate best with your teachers. And the best way is to use your school-based email now that we've opened up that platform to be able to send and receive. And so luckily, there's the continuation with K-12 where students make their own K-12 email, and that's where we're encouraging a lot of that communication to come to and from that rather than personal. But so you understand some history as to why that was.
Okay, Thank you. So Sam, when a student looks in Skyward at their schedule, the Google Classroom classes will have a GC by them, correct?
Google account using their student number and the password that either was automatically there, their first initial of their first name, the first initial of their last name, followed by their student number, or if they've updated it, whatever that is, they should be able to go in and see in Google Classroom whether or not they have any pending classroom invites.
So you kind of froze up at the beginning there. What will their schedule look like in Skyward if they have a Google Classroom class?
Yeah, GC in front of it. It should
Okay.
show Google Classroom GC and then the course.
Great.
And if they think that they are supposed to be in a Google Classroom class and they didn't get an email or they can't figure out the code, they can call the office. And the office has a list of the codes for students. And then the teacher has to approve that before they would allow a student in the class.
Okay. So we're getting down to the end here. There's a question of asking to explain advisory, and I'll take my best shot at it, and then June and Sam can add to it. So the advisory class on their schedule is serving two purposes, really. The first purpose is to push out information school-wide that we need to that we're required by the state or by policy to provide information to our students to. For instance, high school and beyond plans. So as part of the requirement for graduation, students have to complete a high school and beyond plan. That will be done during advisory. When we're in person, the students go to their advisory teacher for the 30 minutes, and those things are done in class. While we're online, those things will be pushed out, and we will announce ahead of time, well in advance, that on this day, students will be required to log into their advisory class at the time advisory starts, which I don't have the schedule in front of me, but whenever that is in the morning, after second period. And those 30 minutes will be spent on either starting, updating the high school and beyond plan, or also with social emotional learning and our social emotional curriculum. And then our financial literacy information and curriculum that we push out to students. So there will be, on occasion, announced ahead of time that students will have an advisory activity on a certain day, and that we would want students to log in during that advisory period. Now, everything will be recorded so that if a student can't for some reason, they can go later in the day and watch it and do the activities that need to be done. And their advisory teacher would be following up with them and making sure that that activity was completed. Those activities will be required of students to complete. The other purpose of advisory is to build in time during the school day for students to get academic assistance. Now, while we're online, academic assistance being provided a bunch of ways. Students can contact their teachers during the class period. So when your teachers, if you have first period math with Miss Phillips, she's available first period, whether she's having a live lesson or not. You can contact her during first period, ask questions, get whatever kind of help you need. If she has a live lesson going on, then obviously she's teaching the live lesson. But then there's also during the advisory period that every teacher is available during advisory for students to contact them. What we've done also is we've created priority days. So if you look at the bell schedule on the website, so each day, Monday through Thursday, each day is dedicated to two departments, and that those two departments take priority on that day. So those teachers know that and I don't have it in front of me, but on Monday, those two departments know that that's the priority for their departments, and students can contact them on that day and get help. Now, that doesn't mean that the student can't contact them on Tuesday or Wednesday. It's just that that's not the priority day. We would ask the student if they have questions in their other classes and to ask them on the priority days. But students can get help any day they want by contacting their teacher during advisory. When we come back in person and we're fully back in person, we will have those advisory days available for students to travel to their teachers on campus and get assistance. So if a student's having a particular trouble, let's say in math, then they may spend their advisory traveling to their math teacher to get assistance when they're here on campus. But for now, it's like a virtual assistance. And we've created those priority days. So students do not have to log in, like they don't have to log into their advisory period if they don't have specific questions. But we would expect them to be doing work during that period. That's another period where they can get caught up on their homework or watch a video that maybe they saw earlier and didn't understand everything, or maybe they're watching a video for the first time. That's like a period for them to be able to get work done. So they should be doing something every day during advisory. They don't necessarily have to log into the advisory class unless they have questions. Now, I probably just completely confused everybody. So June, is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that it just basically gives students a one-stop place and a one-person contact instead of having to contact 5 different teachers with their question. A lot of times they can just ask their question to their advisor, and their advisor can give them the answer, whether it's for K-12 or a general school question. If they have something content related, then they can get on it and talk to their teacher. There's also, we're looking at bringing in some other external supports for students, especially in the area of math, for tutoring options and stuff during that advisory period. So it's another time in school where students can get support and help. And I think it'll help them overall with their learning. And like Mr. Kipper said, if they have a question, they can ask their teacher during the class period. But it just gives that little bit of extra time, and the teacher could probably get a group of students that are having the same questions and do a mini lesson, or even be available to do some type of enrichment activity. It just gives more opportunities during the school day for kids to get help.
Sam, you want to add anything? Yeah. For those who know what our advisory program looks like and have experienced that before, it's going under a major overhaul under the new direction of Mr. Kipper. And I think we're finding what's the priority. And one of the big pieces has been that built into the day, there isn't academic support for our students. And I, as a support staff over the last, this is on my 5th year, have heard time and time again, I can't believe you don't have a study hall period, which is what it was commonly known as, right? Like, where are my students getting the support they need during the day? And we found that advisory can be one of those times. And so I appreciate the changes that Mr. Kipper is making. And what that does is it gives us some time to fully evaluate what's necessary, what's required by the state, what we can pare down to the essentials to be able to get our students what they need academically, as well as then plan post-secondary, as well as expand some of those things like financial literacy that we've had this curriculum we would love to continue to push, as well as getting us counselors out in front of your students more in a revamped social emotional curriculum. So it's a growing year, it's a changing year, and I'm excited to see where this course, this time takes us.
And Miss Leggett on here, one of our English teacher, makes a good point about advisory. And it would be immensely helpful with taking attendance if your son or daughter did log into the advisory class every day, because then that eases the burden a little bit on the advisory teacher, that they've seen them and they know they've logged in. And if there's something about what if their advisory class isn't available to them, I guess I'm not real sure what that means as far as, is it not available on their schedule to see, or if it's not available for them, the teacher's not available, I guess. So if you want to follow up and email me and clarify that question for me, I'd be happy to get the answer for you and get back to you. I think we're getting down to the last of our questions. I just want to reiterate before we leave, it's 7:31 and I want to respect everybody's time. Again, I know the frustration level is fairly high, some more so than others. And just know that we are not going to leave your child behind. We're not going to say, well, too bad they couldn't get on. That's their problem. It's our problem. It's all of ours problem that we have to work with our students and make sure that they're not being penalized for things that are out of their control. Now, having said that, one of the great skills that is in everything we talk about here at school is resiliency. And, you know, while it's frustrating, it's also teaching a life skill that is really important for our students. And that's the idea of being resilient and fighting through adversity and overcoming when things aren't exactly perfect. Now, believe me, I wish they were a lot more perfect than they are. We all do. And everybody's showing a ton of resiliency right now, whether it's teachers, students, parents, you know, administrators, community members, district administrators, everybody is showing a ton of resiliency. But that's just something that we have to keep telling our students is that, hey, if this is the toughest thing they ever face in life, then they're going to probably be living a pretty good life. That there are challenges that we all have to overcome. And this is one of them. And it's a situation that wasn't in any of our control. It wasn't in our parents' control. It wasn't in our students' control. And it's not in our control. It's something that we all have to work with. So I know I'm sounding a little preachy right now, but I just can't emphasize enough how resilient our kids have to be at this time. And they're doing a great job. I mean, I have seen students sitting out in the parking lot doing work. And they come down because they can get connectivity in the parking lot. They come down for an hour or two. They sit in a lawn chair and they're working. That, to me, that's being resilient. That's being innovative, and that's solving a problem that they have. So, you know, if we look at it as we're all in this together and we're all trying to problem solve, we'll get through this and everybody will be better for it. And I know I've said that before, but, you know, it's just something we have to do. And I appreciate all of our families. I appreciate our kids. I appreciate our staff. I think I've told you before that I have not seen a staff that has worked this closely together in this, you know, in this tough of a time. And this is a tough time for everybody. So I appreciate everybody's time tonight. Again, if you have questions that we didn't get answered, please email me. I will get you the answer. If you're not getting responses from people, please forward me the email. I'll make sure you get a response. I want to thank all of our staff members that were on tonight. You're always a great help in the chat room over there, answering and clarifying and expanding on questions and answers. I appreciate that. I want to thank Sam and June for being here tonight. They've given up, you know, their night to be here. So our families have given up theirs. So everybody have a great night. And I don't know what the score of Monday Night Football is, but hopefully my team's winning. So, all right.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank